little bit finer. You could use any kind of nut that you like or have on hand. I just happen to have the pecans, so that's what I'm using. And I have a bundt pan that I have sprayed with non-stick cooking spray. And I'm going to evenly spread these nuts on the bottom of the pan. Just spread them evenly along the bottom. No, just evenly on there. And then I have here some melted butter, and I have some sugar and some cinnamon that I want to mix together. I love the smell of cinnamon. And by the way, if you have had your cinnamon container in your spice pantry for 10 years, it's time to get rid of it and get some new. It's one of those seasoning spices, if you will, that loses its potency pretty quick. So buy it in small quantities, and about every 6 months, smell it. And if it doesn't smell really, really cinnamony, get rid of it and get some more. So I have here 2 5-count packages of just the flaky biscuits. I'm actually going to cut them in half, or tear them in half. You're going to dip it into the butter and then down into the sugar. I'm going to set that right there for just a second till I get a few done, and I'll show you how to get them on the... You can actually stack them. Let's see here. Yeah, just stack them on top of each other till you're ready to put them in the pan, because they'll fall over. This is one of those things that, you hear me say this quite often, but it's very, very true. Let your kids do this. They'll think this is just the most fun thing, because they're getting to get their hands, clean hands, into something that's a little messy, and they'll just think that's fun. And it gets them involved, gets them in the kitchen with you. And then when you get a few of them together, you want them to be stacked up just like that, and then put them in your pan, standing up. This takes just a minute. I also do have a little bit of ground beef that I'm browning over here on the stove for our open-faced Italian sloppy joes. I love sloppy joes. I'm not a huge dessert person. If you've watched this program for a while, you'll know that. I'm just not a really big sweet eater. Now, there are some things that I just love, but I'm not a huge dessert person. So, the things that I make tend to be easy and quick for the most part. There are a few things I do that, might take a little more time. But for the most part, it's pretty easy stuff. If you don't have a bundt pan, you can use a cake pan and put like a bowl or something inverted upside down. Oops, didn't do the butter on that one. To get it where you need it. I need a little more cinnamon sugar, so let's get some more sugar. Just regular old granulated sugar. And some cinnamon. Let me grab that really quick. I tend to keep things in certain places here. You don't have to measure it, just, as much as you like. Just get it cinnamony. There we go. I think I made too much. That's okay, because I'll keep it. Put it in a little container and use it for toast. I love cinnamon sugar toast. If you've never had that, you're really missing something. That is fabulous. Now, this won't take up the whole bundt pan. It'll take about half. But that's okay. You could use 3 5-count biscuits if you wanted to make more. Would work. It's all right, because you're going to tear it apart anyway at the end. Just take the extra nuts and spread over top if you want. Getting over a cold, so forgive me if I clear my throat quite a bit. Still got some congestion. I know so many of you all have been sick too. This has been the year for sickness, I'm telling you what. Now, I'm just going to take the rest of those nuts that aren't covered. As you can see, I got about half done. We are going to put that into a 350-degree oven for around 10 minutes or so, until 350 to 400, any of it will work, till they're about 10 minutes, till they're good and golden and cooking, cooked through, and then we're going to make the sauce. Oh, let me show you something I found. If you can get a good close-up shot of this. I found these little oven guards at a cooking supply store because I am constantly burning my arm on my ovens. If you find those, well worth the investment because it really saves your arms. Now, let's go over to here. We've got just some ground chuck that I'm browning up to make our open-faced Italian sloppy joes. Sloppy joes are one of those meals that are so kid-friendly, but adult-friendly too. And you can make them many, many different ways. This particular one is going to be Italian spiced. I love them. And this one is served open face on toast. Alrighty. So while that's browning, let's wipe off my cutting board here. I like to work with a big cutting board. And I'm just going to chop up some vegetables here. I have one green pepper, and I'm going to cut in half. And I'm just going to cut out the core. I need to wash the cinnamon off my hands. I'm going to take a quick break, just wash up my hands, and I'm going to chop, I'll chop this up when we get back. And when we get back, we're going to finish up the sloppy joes, and we'll start on a great salad. And then we're going to make the sauce for the sticky buns. I'll be back in just a minute. All right, now our ground beef is still browning, and I've got my green onion, or my green pepper. You could use a red pepper or a yellow pepper if you wanted to, whatever color you like. I'm going to cut this sort of fine, not tiny dice, maybe 1/4 of an inch. Cut it in slices, then line up your slices. I always cut my bell peppers from the inside out because that skin on the outside makes it a little bit harder to cut through. I'm going to add it to my beef as I get it done. It just is easier if you cut it from the inside. Okay. All right. Have yourself a nice big cutting board to work on. I could not cut without a cutting board. I know for years when I was growing up, well, my whole life while my mother was alive, she never had a cutting board till she was older. It was probably even after I started this program, and I bought her one. Because when I would go to her house to cook, she didn't have a cutting board. I just can't do it without it. I guess you get used to certain things, and I just could not cook at her home unless I had my cutting board to help me chop. Oops, let's get you back in there. Now I'm just stirring that in. I'm also going to chop 1 medium-sized onion. You gotta have onion in here. This is a white onion, but you could use a yellow onion or a red onion. Doesn't matter. You just want that flavor of the onion. About the same sizes as the bell pepper. Just chop it and add to it. If you wanted to add some like pepperoncini Italian peppers, you could. If you wanted a little bit of spice, you could mince up a jalapeno really fine and add it. But this is not spicy. I love sloppy joes. I like my sloppy joes. I'm not a fan of the canned stuff that you can buy. Once you make them homemade, you're not going to want that. And honestly, it just is not difficult. And it tastes so much better than the canned stuff that you add to the ground beef. I personally just don't care for that. If you do, that's fine. That's up to you. This is a good way to get veggies in your kids, too. Okay, I am a mess today. I keep tossing things out of my skillet. Of course, what day am I not a mess when I'm cooking? I just am a messy cook. We want to let that brown just a little bit. I am going to add a little bit of salt and pepper. We want to let, I'm so sorry about my voice. We want to let this go until the peppers and onions are softened. That's just some plain Italian seasoning. I like to add my spices, as you know, into the mixture before I add the liquids, because I like to let the natural oils and the oils that come out of the beef cause those flavors to bloom. I'll grab a sip of coffee for my throat. It's just, oh. I'm going to add some garlic. What is the equivalent of a couple of cloves? Not too much, just a little bit of garlic. I'm just using the pre-chopped today. Mix that in. Oh, it smells so good already. Let that go for just a minute or so. And then we're going to add some tomato paste. Now, I don't need this whole container of it, about half of this. But what you can do is what you've got left, take it in like tablespoons onto some wax paper and freeze it, and then cut the little squares out of the wax paper and put them in little freezer-safe Ziploc bags. And you've got ready to go tomato paste when you need it. Tomato paste is just an essential ingredient in here. It's that really concentrated flavor of tomato. Sometimes you can find the tomato paste in the tubes. Those are really handy because you can just squeeze out what you need and then put it back in the refrigerator after you're done. Going to add 1 can of diced, I like fire roasted tomatoes. So that's what I have. But if you don't have fire roasted, that's okay. I'm also going to add just a little bit of beef stock. Maybe about, I don't know, half a cup, 3/4 of a cup, because I want this to simmer and I need some sauce. So add just a touch more beef broth. We're going to let this simmer for, about, I'd say 10 or 15 minutes. But at this point, you could put this in a crock pot and let it go all day long if you wanted to. Or brown your beef and put everything in a crock pot and let it go all day long. I'm going to set this aside because I'm going to put that in tablespoons. Let's check our biscuits real quick. Let's see how they are looking. Let me grab a little thing. Let's see. No, they need about 5 more minutes. It's up to, your oven and the brand that you're using, quite honestly, as to, how long it'll take. All right, I'm going to take a quick break. I'm just going to clean up my mess. When I come back, we are going to make a salad and a salad dressing. Our biscuits will be done. This is just going to simmer away until we're ready to serve. And then the best part, we get to taste. I'll be back in just a couple minutes. Alrighty, now let's make the sauce for the biscuits. I took them out of the oven. I have here a small saucepan that I put some butterscotch morsels in, and I'm adding some evaporated milk, and I'm going to melt this over the stove. Now, you could use the microwave if you wanted to. It just wouldn't be right if I didn't flip something out of the pot. We just want to melt these. I've got it like medium heat, maybe medium, 1 step above medium high. On my stove, it's 6. I don't know how your stove works. But it doesn't take that long at all to melt, so you don't want to walk away from it. And you're going to make a like we would make a ganache for chocolate, which if you don't like butterscotch, by all means you could use chocolate here. But it doesn't take it long to melt. Just make sure you stir it. You could also do this over a double boiler. I think I'm going to add a few more butterscotch morsels. Just a few more. It's a little thin. Just add. You just want it to be, you don't want it to be thick, 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 but you don't want it runny either. Now, I used evaporated milk here, but if you don't have the canned evaporated milk, you could use regular milk or cream or half and half, whatever you wanted to. Just want to melt those down. By the way, this little whisk is a great little whisk. This comes from that company that a lot of schools will do fundraisers with, the Rada. This is the best little whisk. It's like $3 or $4, and it's really a very, very good. Now, this is not a non-stick pan. This is a hard anodized, or I would not be using this metal whisk. But that's it. If you wanted to add a little touch of vanilla or almond extract, you could. You don't need it. I'm going to let that set for just a second. Now, on our salad, here's where you can use your creativity. I'm actually going to use, it's a cucumber salad, so you need a cucumber. I'm going to peel this one because this is not one of those English cucumbers. My store didn't have any. This is just a regular cucumber, but it has that waxy coating on it, and I don't personally like to eat that. I don't want to eat that. So I'm peeling mine. If you were using a garden fresh cucumber or even one of those English cucumbers, you would not need to peel. Would be fine without it. So I'm going to slice up my cucumber sort of thin. If you have a mandolin, by all means, you can use that. You can make these slices as thick or as thin as you like. Okay, let's get this out of the way. Now, I have a big bowl here that I'm going to move some of my stuff so I can put my cucumber in my bowl. This is one of those recipes that you can customize to your own liking. If you have a fennel bulb, oh, this is so good with fennel. But, you know, my store didn't have any yesterday. I must have gone on a restock day or something. They didn't have a couple of the things that I wanted. I like to slice my pepper in half to make it a little more bite-size friendly. I have a trash can right here. I'm just gonna do the pepper in the trash can. Get out that white membrane. It's okay if there's a couple of seeds left. It's not gonna hurt you. There's no heat in those. All right. But you could use really any kind of a vegetable that you like. If you want to put some celery and carrot, go right ahead. If you have the pepperoncini, that Italian pepper, you could add a couple of those. Just be mindful, they can be a little bit hot. And I'm going to add probably about half of this yellow pepper because I have it on hand. And it just adds a different flavor and a different color. Believe it or not, they're different flavors from the red, the yellow, and the orange and green peppers. They taste totally different. My favorite is the red. I love a red pepper, and I think one cucumber will be plenty in this. Then you want to make your dressing. This is very simple. I have here some white wine vinegar, some salt, some pepper, tiny bit of sugar, and I'm going to add some fresh dill to this, just a little bit. Greek food has a whole lot of dill in it, dill and lemon. There's really no substitute for this flavor. I love the flavor of dill. If you don't have fresh dill, you can use dry. Use about a third as much because it's a much stronger flavor. It's not as good, but it will work in a pinch. Stir that together. There's no oil in here. You could put a little bit of olive oil if you want to. This is kind of one of those just summer salads that, you know, moms made years ago with the cucumber and the onion and the vinegar. It's a kind of a take on that. And then, of course, because this is an Italian-inspired salad, I'm going to add my favorite, which are some diced up or sliced up Kalamata olives. If you don't like Kalamatas, you do not have to put them in here. But I love them. And a little bit of, this is just a goat cheese that I have. I love it. You could do feta if you wanted to. Just some crumbles in there, and that's it. It's done. This is a delicious, delicious, easy salad that I could eat all day, every day, because it's just that good. Now, let's get our dessert done. Here's our biscuits. Here is our sauce. Now, you can pour this over top of that, or you can, let me grab my plate here, take a couple, as many or as few of these little biscuits as you want, put them on your serving tray. Don't leave the nuts behind, and then pour a little bit of this sauce over top. And you have a delicious, easy dessert, a butterscotch sticky bun. Now, let me show you how to make your sloppy joes. I don't have a toaster here, so I just toasted these in the oven for just a minute, like under the broiler, a couple minutes each side. I'm going to put a little bit of this mixture over top of my bread. These are open-faced. I'm going to top it with a slice of mozzarella and pop it back in the oven to melt the cheese. Alrighty, now our dishes are done. This is the open-faced Italian sloppy Joe. I just put I had the block of mozzarella cheese that I just sliced, but if you only have the shredded, just put some shredded mozzarella on there. Served alongside our wonderful cucumber salad that I just put some extra black pepper on. And here are our delicious butterscotch sticky buns that would also make a great breakfast with a cup of coffee. We've got a bell pepper here loose. So there you go. Here is a quick and easy, delicious meal that you can make from start to finish in your home any day of the week. Thank you for joining with me, and I'll see you next time on Everyday Manna.